Before we begin, 3 messages. If you're a freelancer or running your own small business, the one thing you probably wish you could do quicker and easier is invoicing. That's where FreshBooks.com comes in. They take the pain out of invoicing and get you paid faster. Effortlessly create invoices and email them to your clients. They can view them, print them, and even pay you right away with PayPal or any of their 11 other payment gateways. FreshBooks.com can automate late payment reminders and help track your billable hours at the office or while on the go with their apps for iPhone, BlackBerry, and Android. I'm only one of over 2 million really satisfied customers, and you can be one as well, all for free. Just head to www.freshbooks.com and sign up. When you do, be sure to say you heard of them from untether.tv, and one of you, my loyal viewers, will win a birthday cake each and every week. Doesn't even have to be your birthday. Get started today for free at www.freshbooks.com. When my company needed to develop a key mobile product, one that I was counting on as a new source of revenue, I knew exactly who to turn to. Macadamian. They delivered on time with incredible attention to detail, and I was able to get product into customers' hands faster than I ever thought possible. I've personally known them for 10 years, and they do make great products even better. Check them out at www.macadamian.com. Here's a riddle. How do you build native cross-platform mobile applications quickly without having to rewrite code and hire consultants at a huge cost? Titanium from Appcelerator. Called the easy button for mobile application development, it allows you to focus more on what's important, getting product out the door. Join the more than 1.5 million active developers who have created over 13,000 apps at www.appcelerator.com. Hello everybody, welcome to untether.tv, where we have casual conversations with mobile rock stars. And you probably have guessed, if you haven't already, I'm a huge baseball fan. Baseball to me is a renewal, it's spring. It means that the winter in Ottawa, in Canada, is gone. It's time to bring in the warm days and casual evenings around the ballpark. But not everybody like me has a deep appreciation for the sport. And, you know, there are great games that complement it. There's betting that complements it to make it a little bit more interesting. I don't need that. But we found this great little company out of Chicago, Illinois, a company called GameSlam. And with me is Kenny Mazursky, who's the co-founder of GameSlam.
Basically, GameSlam, it's a prediction game that actually allows you to make predictions while you're playing the game live and in real time.
And this is something because people don't have an appreciation for what baseball actually is. Is this really for the fan of baseball?
Right. So we created the game for a couple reasons. One, there's about around 10 million fantasy baseball fans.
Yes.
And baseball and football combined, I think there's about 30 million. You add in hockey, and a couple other sports, basketball. And those are the people who play fantasy are generally the hardcore fans. So the game definitely appeals to the hardcore fantasy user, but there's in total probably 80 to 100 million people who are casual sports fans. And while fantasy is great for the hardcore fan, it requires a tremendous amount of time, especially when you're talking about baseball, which is a 162 game season. And we've basically said, all right, this is a great game for fantasy fans because it gives you something to do while you're watching the game, but also for those casual fans who may not have the time or the knowledge to really play a 162 game fantasy season. Yep. This allows pretty much everyone who watches baseball to kind of engage at whatever level they want. You can play for an inning, you can play for a full game, you can play for a whole season.
So it's basically, if you have a short attention span, you can jump in and jump out as often as you want and for as long as you want.
Right, a short attention span like me, or a guy with a wife and 2 kids like me, who does not play fantasy, but I'll watch 3 or 4 baseball, 3 or 4 football games every week. I just don't know when I'm going to watch them.
Yep.
And when I do, I'm usually sitting with my phone doing something else, checking email, Angry Birds, Fruit Ninja, etc. And that's kind of why we came up with this game. That and if you ask a fantasy person what they do during the game, they say, I sit there and refresh my stats.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of let us know that there was a void in the marketplace. There's nothing really to do during the game. And then secondly, you have a lot of conversation about the game taking place on Facebook and Twitter and Foursquare and just texting and at bars and stuff like that. But you have a broadcast that's over here, and you have the conversation that's taking place over here. So we kind of built a game that not only allows you to interact with the game you're watching, but it also kind of bridges the gap between the push broadcast and the social interaction. It kind of brings them together in the middle.
Well, it's been one of the biggest challenges that mobile has faced and traditional media has faced is bridging that gap between what's going on the screen in real time and engaging somebody to actually interact with that. And I think that's certainly what GameSlam does to the nth degree. Obviously, it's surprising though that I sit with a lot of, when I go to see baseball games, I'm not one of those guys, but I see a lot of guys doing their own scoring, and that leads me to believe that even those guys who are hardcore fans that are going to score a game still need a distraction to get through some of the points in the game, right? It can be a 4-hour endeavor, but people golf for 4 hours, and I don't get that. So,
when you're golfing, you're actually playing the game, right?
Or people watch.
So our game lets you kind of play the game as well, right? So you're watching, but instead of just watching, you're actually interacting with those real-time events.
So talk about, so that was the reason to do it. So you saw some people who are hardcore fans or even casual fans, and you wanted to give them the opportunity to interact with the game or at least be predictive. Walk through the game itself. So you're basically making a call before something happens on the field.
Right, so we kind of came up with two ways to play the game. There's what we call like a game call, which is you're basically choosing one team or the other team. And you're saying, I don't know, who's your favorite team?
I'm going to go out here and tell you that I went from a low budget, low market, small market, no budget team like the Montreal Expos that we were talking about before, then moved to Washington. Mm-hmm. And I said, why am I suffering? Why am I suffering with a team that has no budget? So I immediately went over to the $220 million a year budget.
All right, so you're a Yankees fan.
I'm a Yankees fan. All
right, just out with it. So you're a Yankees fan. So say the Yankees are playing the Red Sox, and the heart of the order is coming up for the Yankees, and you think something good is going to happen, but you don't know what it is. You start with 10,000 points, and basically you allocate a certain amount of points to the Yankees, and then as good things happen, singles, doubles, home runs, you get bonus points, negative events, outs, strikeouts, double plays, whatever, you lose points. That's what we call our game call. And then we have a deeper level, which is kind of an advanced play or a play call, which allows you to do two things. It allows you to guess whether or not, or predict whether or not there's going to be a ball or strike on the next pitch, or it allows you to predict what's going to happen in the at-bat, home run, single, double, those types of things. And then the first level is just kind of the points are based on fantasy. The second level is based on actual odds. And
you're playing against other people?
Well, you're playing. You don't have. Yeah, you're playing against other people, but you don't have to be playing against other people. If you want to play with your friends, you can invite your friends. You can challenge your friends on a play-by-play basis. Mm-hmm. Right now we're in beta, so some of the features aren't available, but eventually I'll be able to say to you, hey, I think Derek Jeter's going to hit a home run. I'll bet you 500 points. You can say yes, and then game's on, right? So but the idea is that ultimately people generally like to watch sports and talk about sports with their friends. So yes, you can absolutely compete with your friends. If none of your friends are around, you can just hop in and play against other people. So
it's basically a big communal pool, short-term, long-term pool.
Exactly.
And so does it keep, we're talking deep about the game right now, but does it keep statistics for you? Does it keep your, a cumulative number of points, or do you start over every time you launch the game?
You start with the same amount every time, but you have an accumulation of points in your profile. Okay. So if the first game I end up with 15,000 points, the next game I end up with 20,000, so my bank would have 35,000 points in it.
Okay, and then
if my addition's correct.
So far, I'm not going to add it up, but yes, it sounds right. So you've got all these things, right? Where baseball is, or I guess this can be applied to any sports, but right now you focused on baseball because you've launched it to coincide with the Major League Baseball season going. What's the next step in this? Is it you're about to launch the mobile applications
right.
for this? But what do you hope to achieve with with the game? Is it a user grab right now? I mean, what are you trying to do with this? Just create the game experience?
Well, I think there's a couple things. I mean, one, I think we're filling a void in the market, right? So there's nothing to do during the game, and the way we've created the game allows you to kind of engage, occasionally or throughout the game. So one of the complaints that we saw with some other products that have tried to do this is that you have to play every play to win, and people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
We know that the primary reason you're watching the game is to watch the game, but I also know that every time I watch the game, I'm playing Angry Birds and Fruit Ninja on my phone, or checking my email, or checking my Facebook, or whatever. So I'm definitely, I'm, along with probably everyone else my age and a little bit older and definitely younger, is ADD, and you're looking for more stuff to do.
Yeah.
And you're connecting with your friends anyway, and all that other stuff. So we think we're really filling the void of that space. Plus, like I said earlier, so we're bringing that social component to the game as well. So that's one of the reasons we're doing it. And once you fill a void, I think that there's a lot of people who will migrate to that void. And talking to people, everyone from the most hardcore fantasy players to just casual people. A lot of people say, "Oh, I definitely played that. We're already seeing that. We launched on Thursday. We're seeing thousands of people come to the site on a daily basis, and lots of people sign up."
So you hit it right. What are some of the risks that you guys were kind of concerned about while you were building out this game? Obviously, you did your research. You found out that there's a niche, there's a hole here. You're trying to fill that hole. What was the balance between creating the product and offering enough features, creating the game and offering enough features, or dialing it back so that it's simple enough so that more people can use it? I mean, was that a struggle?
Right? So you're always trying to hit. That's a good question. I mean, because you're always trying to hit that sweet spot, right? So our kind of razor for the game, our kind of no matter what happens, kind of like we just call it a razor.
Yeah.
What makes the cutting, what hits the cutting floor, what makes the actual game itself, has to be that the game has to be fun.
Yeah.
So and kind of like a lowest common denominator, right? So anyone should be able to play. It should be easy, and it has to be fun, because it doesn't matter what void you're filling. If the game's not fun, no one's going to do it. And so that was kind of where we started from that perspective. And then the next thing is the game fun, but is it interesting enough to keep people playing and coming back?
Yeah.
And to that point, and this is the great thing about our development team, is that we can iterate really fast. So our ability to iterate really fast is, we went beta, we launched beta on Thursday, we got some feedback, and we're already making some significant tweaks to the way the game's played based on, internal feedback and external user feedback as well. And within the next couple weeks, we're going to come out with a new way to play, and which involves a new scoring system. And we, even in talking to some existing users, people are going to love it, and I think it's going to be really awesome. And I think in terms of building a long-term engagement between our players and the game, I think it's really going to go a lot further.
Well, talk about that, because you guys built an algorithm, you built a scoring system into this, and so what you're saying is that based on the user feedback, you're going to make modifications to that to accommodate some of their complaints or their suggestions?
Yeah, it hasn't really been complaints. I mean, everyone who plays it thinks it's a fun game, and we agree. But it's one of those things where you're always trying to create the best product. And in this case, we had some suggestions, like I said, both externally and then internally, because prior to beta, we had played it internally a lot, and you're just always looking for ways to make the game better. And what we kind of thought is, the game is really fun, but and I think we met that first razor point, which is the game is fun, but then the next razor point is what's going to keep people coming back and playing for a long time. And so we've added a lot of strategy elements into the next generation, to make the game more dynamic.
People listening to this or watching this who aren't baseball fans might think that this is a simple endeavor to kind of create an artificial intelligence or a scoring system for baseball. But as a baseball fan, and whoever is a baseball fan out there that's listening or watching, the intricacies of baseball and strategy. It's a very strategic game, and the game changes with every pitch, literally with every pitch and every batter and every situation. I mean, how much of that do you take into consideration? How much do you kind of get deep into situational analysis and weigh points, with runners on second and third, or with a 1-2 pitch? I mean, does it get that deep, or are you just, coating the surface now, but want to get into that deepness around baseball?
Right. So algorithmically, we have the capabilities to get in that deep.
Yep.
And at some point, it will go that deep. Right now, because everyone, even the most savvy baseball fan, our game is new to. We've been trying to keep it simple.
Yeah. So get them in there, get them using it, and then start to introduce.
Yeah, if I start throwing, percentage, if I'm trying to get someone to understand the percentage odds of someone hitting a home run on a 1-2 count with a man on first and second with a pitcher with 91 pitches in the 7th inning in a 3-2 game, that's a little
5:18 in the afternoon. Yes.
Right, exactly, and the sun's kind of shining. It's that type of drill down is, one, confusing to anyone who shows up for the first time, and two, maybe not interesting to the majority of our players.
That's true. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, it's not interesting with the angle, the shadow based on the roof, or the way that the vines on Wrigley Field are waving. It doesn't. That kind of specificity is what I think people complain about baseball more than anything. So keeping it light is obviously the best way to do it.
Right. So instead, we focused, and this is what the second generation beta will be, is that we've tried to focus more on creating things in the game that make you wanna play and make it fun versus getting technical.
Yeah.
Because I always say there's nothing fun about math for most people. So
there's definitely not, and that's it. Not many people.
I like analytics, but I don't think most people do.
No, most people didn't want to grow up and be a statistician, right? So let's get into the business side of this, because it's an interesting thing. Because first and foremost, what are some of the? Did you bump into any licensing agreements when you had to build something like this? I mean, is there something that you had to do to get permission, or is this just is this public domain?
Right. So we have a stats feed through
StatsInc, yeah,
and they handle all the licensing for the stats through their own channels. If you use team logos, which we currently do not, then you need a license from whatever league you're working on. So we're exploring that, and that's something that we may do in the future. We've been in talks with various partners about stuff like that. But for now, we're clear on the licensing side.
Yeah, and I mean, I anticipate that, because if you're going to be submitting to Apple, to the iStore or iTunes, you're going to have to be in compliance with that. What about things like, this is, it's not quite betting, but it's gameplay, right? Where you're putting up points against an action happening. Is that's obviously not of concern, right? Because it's
right.
Not
so there's no money exchanging.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely not gambling. You're playing with points, and at certain points you'll be able to acquire enough points that'll gain you entry into tournaments where you can win cash and prizes. But ultimately, this is a game of skill.
Yeah. And
but there's absolutely this is absolutely not gambling, and there's no issue there.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to clear that up. Certainly, it's when it comes to turning this into a revenue source. There's probably 1,000 different ways that you guys can do this. You're probably not. Are you thinking about that now, or is this a longer term play for you?
Well, I mean, we're a startup, so we have funding, and we're obviously revenue focused. But first things first, you have to build a good game, and you have to get people to the site, and you have to get people to play it and then play it again. So from that perspective, we're in that stage right now, but we haven't built it without thinking about revenue, and we think that there's some very viable revenue streams as it relates to to generating revenue from the site. One of which obviously is advertising. not just from putting your logo in the stands, but because we have a 3D game cast, which allows you to watch the game in real time without even watching the game on TV. There's a lot of interaction that we can offer to brands beyond just, here's my logo.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of in-game engagement. There's virtual sponsored goods and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Two, there's a lot of it's free to play, by the way. I don't know if we mentioned that the game itself is free to play, but there are game upgrades, status upgrades. There's virtual goods. Every player will have an avatar, and you can deck out your avatar. You win trophies. You're going to have to put those trophies somewhere. You put them in a trophy room or a player den or a man cave or whatever people call it. So there's stuff that you can get for points, and there's stuff that you could actually pay for. People may want to buy exclusive games for just their buddies or create season-long tournaments and stuff like that as well. So there's lots of different revenue streams, and plus there's a licensing opportunity because if you're a broadcaster, this enhances the length that someone will watch the game because you're already engaged. And in a baseball game, if it's 9-2. Someone's going to turn off the game, or a football game that's 42-7. Someone's going to turn off the game. But if you're already involved in GameSlam, there's a good chance that and you're still making predictions. You can still win the game you're playing in, and make predictions until the game's over. So you're most likely to stay watching the game for a longer period of time, which is also interesting. And lastly, from the licensing perspective, if you're a league. There's the leagues are having a challenging time getting younger players to engage in the sports. So offering kind of the social gaming engine as a way to get younger players involved is also very interesting.
Now, when it comes to sports, I don't think that there's and sports done right like this, I don't think that there's too much of a challenge of finding a revenue stream, right? I think it's maybe your challenge is going to be making sure that whatever features you said, that razor's edge, making sure that the features that go into the game are something that people want to play and continuously play. I'm going to come back to that in a second. And obviously the second thing is then focusing on your revenue stream, focusing on just a few of them and not trying to do all of them at one time.
Exactly. I mean, and it's, you don't want to put the cart before the horse. Ultimately, users generate revenue. So the game's free to play. We just want a bunch of people to come and play and have fun. Mm-hmm. And once we reach a critical mass, it's easy to monetize.
Well, yeah, you just flip the switch. That's what everybody thinks, right? But you have to be.
Not that easy.
Yeah, you have to be tactical about what you put in place.
Let's not kid ourselves. It's not that easy, but it's a lot easier once you have eyeballs.
Well, how do you get people to come back and play? Is that a good combination of I've downloaded many games and things that I thought, oh man, I'm going to play this forever, and then it feels like I play it forever for a week, and then I forever put it into the apps I don't use category. How do you get people to come back day after day after day after day? It's one thing to create a good experience, but even that can wane. What do you do about those things?
I agree with that. So that's why we talked about having different kinds of tournaments, different kinds of contests, where you're actually playing. I think that's why it's also important to get people to invite their friends to play, because if that's where all your friends are playing, that's where you'll play as well. And that's honestly one of the most challenging things with what we're doing, is because it's a new type of experience. So anytime you introduce a new experience, there's an adoption issue.
Yeah. Well, how are you creating awareness for this? Aside from coming on tether.tv, that should get you maybe 3 or 4 more players.
This is it.
This is it. It's all wrapped up into this one segment.
Isn't this going to go viral? No.
This is going to go viral. Yeah, this is it. We're making a viral video. But really, how do you create awareness for it? Timing is great because the launch of the MLB season. But
right, it's a good question. So we have a kind of a full holistic marketing strategy. Obviously PR. We have an interesting viral video campaign that, no joke, that's actually coming out. I'll shoot you the link after.
Please.
After we're done with this. We have a large social team that's working on the project with us.
Yeah.
Paid media and then partnerships. Because at the end of the day, it's all about distribution. So the nice thing about our game is that it's portable. When I say it's portable, I mean that we could take our game and put it on any site. So yeah, we can put it on our Facebook page, but we can put it on someone else's Facebook page too. We could take the game and put it on your site. We could go to Major League Baseball if they, and put it on their site. We could go to a network and put the game on their site. So the more distribution we get, the more places our game is available. The more players we'll have from that perspective. And then I do think that there is a viral component in the sense that people do want to play with their friends. So, doing a lot of research, 90+% of people said that they would invite their friends to play this. We have paid outreach and partnership programs and a couple other fun things up our sleeve.
Well, it makes sense. Obviously, you have to whether it's a Facebook game or whether it's a mobile game or both. What you have to be able to do is you can't just go one avenue. You have to kind of do this full frontal assault, don't you, in order to be able to get those numbers up. You have a finite. The baseball season's long; it's 6 months. But you want to engage with these people in the first 30 days where the excitement of the new season is back, don't you?
Yeah, I agree with that. And, I think that at the same time, as a startup company, we have a good budget, but I think what you want to do is you want to test in a lot of different areas and see which ones are working and then optimize towards the things that are successful.
Well, I definitely agree with that. And the beautiful thing is that, especially with the social networks, you have an install base of rabid fans that are already talking about this. So engaging with them at that point and marketing to them, or not marketing, but carrying on a conversation with them, or engaging in a conversation that's already begun, is very helpful. It's not like you're selling something that's so wild or out there that people you have to explain it to them. This is part of their language already, which is a sign of a good product, I would say.
Yeah, thank you. I always laugh when people say rabid fans. And I was like, what do they have, rabies?
Exactly. I've seen some. I went to a Yankees game. It was the ALCS a number of years ago. It was the one where the Yankees were up 3-0 in games, and the Red Sox stormed back and won 4 straight, and then they won the World Series. I was at game 1 of the ALCS again between Boston and New York, and we walked up into the sections. We were in the 200 levels at Yankee Stadium, and we walked up and we were, didn't wear a ball cap or anything, no Yankees stuff. I didn't know where we were going to be sitting. I didn't want to offend, right? You're in New York. And walked in, and it was just a sea of blue with Yankees caps, and they all looked at me, and I guess there was a spokesman for the section, and he looked up, he said, yo, Yankees fan? I'm like, absolutely. Right? There's a certain type of fan. You have to, you don't want to get into a scrap. And these guys were rabid fans, right? I think that if I had said, whatever, I probably would have been thrown from the stadium, right? So
yeah, that's potential. Or being that they're rabid, foaming at the mouth, and
well, they are from New York. They are from New York.
Hydrophobia.
Yeah.
All the stages of rabies. Anyway.
Well, what about the funding side of it? You said you've got your startup, you've got some angel investment. Is that how you guys have been funded so far?
Yeah, we actually private equity.
Okay, and was it hard to convince somebody to put money into an idea, or were they sports fans, rabid baseball fans?
I don't know if it was much. The fact that that they're sports fans as much as they thought that it was a good idea.
Okay.
And our investors are all very, very savvy business people, and I think in terms of what we've built and what we had planned on building and the opportunity in the space was significant enough that they were willing to invest with confidence.
Well, what about so when did you guys launch the company?
So we started with this idea back in the fall of 2009.
Okay.
And then, we kind of built it out, business plan, all that other stuff. And then we finally got funding in August of 2010. So considering when we got our funding to where we are now, you could realize, what an amazing job our development team has done in terms of creating it. Such a robust game in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. Did you have to take the off season off because there were no games to bet on?
Not sure what you mean.
Did you baseball season ends in October, so everybody goes home until spring training?
Oh no, we were testing with football. I mean,
okay.
This is not just a baseball game, so we We were all hands on deck.
Well, that's great. That's the beauty of sports, is that it's all year round, and you move into different areas. And what about so you guys kind of come up with the idea in '09. You work hard. You get funding in the summer of 2010. You're launching at the beginning of in spring of 2011, and you launch with Facebook. And you said you're in beta with the mobile applications. What do you think that the impact of mobile is going to have? When people can walk around with this, because right now you're confined to a laptop or a desktop,
Right.
or in home. What do you think that mobile is going to do for you?
Well, I mean, obviously it's mobile, right? So
It's great. Yeah.
I mean, I mean, you know what's happening with mobile and
Yep.
and tablets and iPad and all that other stuff. So I mean, what it's going to do is, I think it's just it's going to be that much more compelling. Besides, the graphics on our game look great now. You should see them. I mean, I have an iPhone, so we get our phones commissioned, and I have the beta version on my
Yep.
phone. And the graphics on the iPhone are just unbelievable. And the fact that you'll be able to walk around wherever you are playing the game, in a bar, at the game, at a friend's house,
Grocery shopping.
yeah, wherever you are, I think it's gonna, it'll at least double our use, if not put it even higher, because like I said before, it also has a game cast.
Yeah.
So and we think it's one of the better game casts out there. I'm obviously biased, but third parties have told us the same.
Yeah.
So the fact that people would just be using it as a game cast alone, I think it's going to really increase our use. But I think beyond that, it's just in terms of engagement, it's going to do really well.
Well, I love the idea of having a game cast in there, because then it becomes one of those sticky applications where, while there's a game on, while you're stuck in line or while you're doing something that you're not enjoying, you can actually pull up the game and see what the score is. And I like that. And, I think that MLB.com has left a huge opportunity for companies like yourself, because they have their MLB.TV application for the smartphone, and they've stripped all those features right out. So you get the score, you don't get the game cast. They've left this stuff out of their application, which they had in last year, which gives companies like you an opportunity to go out and get that customer base, get them stuck on the app. And oh, by the way, there's an interactive level that like which you've never seen before when it comes to the sports, which I think is great.
That's kind of what it's a second way to get people engaged. It's right. It's like, all right, here's a game cast, and then if there just happens to be a button next to there, well, I don't, I'd press that. It's
exploration.
Right, it's that kind of a thing.
So, I mean, in general, I mean, when you look at the sports industry, which, one way or another you guys are now influencing, because, people inside of an arena or a stadium or a rink, I think that the owners understand that attention is dwindling when they're in there, right? You've got a lot of downtime in every sport. And sometimes the seats aren't so good, so you still have to get people engaged. So you play loud music, and you've got a big, a massive jumbotron. If you look at what Major League Baseball did in all of their parks, they talked about a technology upgrade for a lot of these parks, and what that meant was bigger jumbotron, right? Not about engaging with the individual or allowing them to get more interactive in the game. It's more about, hey, we're going to put better pictures and better video so you can watch the game from your seat instead of watching the game on the field, right? So we know that there's a challenge there. How much do you think that games, applications like you're building and others are building, are becoming more and more important to the sports industry? Like, it would just seem that this is something that they need to do, and it's something that you guys are feeling you need.
I think it's not just to the sports industry. I think it's to any industry. I mean, technology leads the way for a lot of things, and obviously mobile is at the forefront of technology in terms of where it's going. So I don't think it's anything unique to sports. It just happens to be the space we're playing in. I think in general, technology and mobile technology are driving business.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just don't know what industry culminates, like in a mobile device that everybody's carrying around. The influence that it's obviously going to have is massive, and you just hope to be in that stream so that you can participate in this. if you can convince a lot of people to participate while they're sitting at their desktop, certainly going to be a lot easier to convince people to download an application and participate wherever they are. And you're going to get some great patterns. So do you foresee that, like, the aggregate statistics that you're going to be collecting? Here's back to that stats word, because it's baseball, or it's any sports, but you can kind of like go with the crowd. So wisdom of the crowds, right? Where you could literally you could predict outputs of games. Long term, you think about it, that you lock your vote in for in the first inning or before the game begins between Boston and New York, for example, or Chicago and any of the other teams.
Sure.
And then you get an aggregate, and you can see what they think the outcome of the game is going to be based on statistical analysis. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny question, because it's like there's so many existing statistics in terms of player performance.
Yep.
I wouldn't use fan prediction necessarily as a way to predict the game, just because you have real statistics, and if you ask any fan, you're going to get biased. I mean, if you've ever looked at any of those maps and who you think's going to win, it's always funny.
My team, yeah, of course.
I don't, tonight's the NCAA.
Yep.
Final, NCAA finals, so you have Butler and UConn. So I don't know what the overlay looks like, but my guess is if you looked at a map, 49 states are going to pick UConn, and the one state that's going to pick Butler is the state of Indiana. So
yeah, but they do. It's funny because you think about there's always going to be throwaways, and there's always going to be people who are fan based, and they base their decision emotionally, not logically.
Right.
But there is going to be a higher aggregate that as you guys go through the season, 162 games in a season, but that's like 4,800 team games to the equivalent of. You're going to get some pretty interesting statistics that you're going to be able to measure. And a lot of people who engage in this, as you become more mature as a product and you get a little bit more detailed, you get rid of the chafe, or you diminish the value of the chafe for the guys who are playing casually, and you look at the guys who are really playing this, who understand the pitching situation or the matchup and who's injured, and you could start to do some predictive analysis, for the outcomes of the game, and ultimately, that's got some value. I'm not sure where, but it's got some value somewhere when you start to crunch those numbers.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, data mining is, like I said, I'm an analytics guy, so it's something that we'll look at, versus people who play every day versus people who play 3 times a week versus people who play once a week or once a month. Who's more accurate?
Well, I mean, it's baseball, so
I don't know. Right.
That's exactly what you need to do. And if you're not doing it, I mean, you're not doing the analytical side of it justice, I would say. So when are the mobile applications going to be released? Do you know?
Well, so as you know, we have no control over iOS. Yep. They've been submitted. So whenever the people in California say that we can have a mobile app, we'll have a mobile app.
Okay, it's always that waiting game.
I will email you as soon as it's ready.
Okay, that's great. But in the interim, people can find information.
You can go to GameSlam.com. And it's one-click sign up. You can either sign up with your Facebook account or just log in with a username and password. Super easy, and it's free to play.
And so you said that baseball is just one sport. You've got
football?
So
we'll end up with NFL, college basketball, college football, hockey. I know you're a Canada guy.
Yeah.
And NBA, golf, NASCAR. And then we'll hopefully go overseas and do soccer and do Olympics and do cricket.
Come on, really? So the game engine that you're building is transferable across all these things?
Right. So we built the hard part. The easy part is just kind of putting in a different stat speed and changing the skin or the look and feel of the game. That's
incredible. That's a lot that you guys have been up to in a short period of time.
Yep, our CTO Tim Alvis is a genius, and so are the rest of the guys on our development team.
And is it? It really comes down to the team that you partner with, that you pull in, doesn't it? For something
I agree.
Like this?
I mean, I've been involved in tons of projects before, and I've been involved with good teams and teams that aren't so hot, and like any sports team, it's about the players and it's about how you all work together.
And obviously, you guys are working very well together at this point.
Yeah, so far it's been pretty cool.
Well, I can't wait to see this product on the iPhone and Android devices. I'll look forward to even seeing this hopefully sometime later on the iPad.
Oh yeah, it'll be ready on the iPad at the same time it's on. It'll be iPod Touch, iPhone, and iPad.
Okay.
All at once.
All right, and I'll make sure that as soon as it does come out, I'll make sure that I distribute it to all of the people who are watching this or listening to this.
Awesome, thank you.
So GameSlam.com.
You got it.
That's the best way to do it. Go and join, and anybody who's in there, look me up and challenge me, and I'm going to kick some baseball butt. That's
awesome.
What I say.
My username's Slam. So
Slam. Write it down. Slam. I've been speaking with Slam. That's a great name. So it's Kenny Slam Mazursky. Is that what you're going by now?
Sure.
All right. Well, Kenny, so thank you so much for doing this. I, as a baseball fan, it's a real joy to see somebody who's actually taking the game and innovating around the game beyond the big scoreboard, actually getting people immersed into gameplay. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to see the iPhone or the mobile version of this coming out soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. We've been speaking with Kenny Mazursky. He's the co-founder of GameSlam. Go to GameSlam.com, start playing it, challenge Slam, and I'll put my username up in the information around this post. Thank you guys who are still watching or listening to this. This has been another episode of Untether.tv. Thanks.
All right, thanks.